Hey, it's Tess. For those that don't know me, I am a bariatric patient who is nearly 10 years post-surgical. I was challenged to go live probably about 3-4 years ago now. And my journey started as sharing that, but now I kind of share that all areas of my life were impacted when I started changing the way that I approach life. And today I wanted to talk about quantum leaps. And I've been looking at this book. Day before yesterday, I talked about a story that opened this book up that I thought was quite interesting. And it was a story where a person was sitting in a room watching a fly. And it was talking about how if we continue doing the same thing, we're not going to change anything in our lives. And that's a lot of what has happened to me in the past 10 years. I've had to look at how I've done things and be open to learning a different way. And so what happened is when this person was watching a fly, the fly kept hitting a window, kept hitting it, hitting it, hitting it. Well, we all know a fly is never going to be able to push through a window, but only probably 10 feet down was an open doorway. So if this fly had been looking around for other possibilities, it could have found an escape. And it kind of is the opening of this book on quantum, U squared, which is the idea of quantum leaps. And I thought, well, the idea of quantum leaps sounds very appealing to me, but I'll tell you there was a point in time when the idea of quantum leaps sounded scary to me, and that was it something that should be happening. But what's going on with me now is that I'm trying to learn and be open to learning new ways of doing things and to understand differently than what it was when I was young. Because I often talk about when I was young, my grandparents were horseback. Then they were cars. They lived on a farm. Then they came north and they worked in a factory. And things just changed as we grew, as we became open as all people to see life differently. Opportunities changed. And I think sometimes we get stuck. And I was actually reading in this U squared. It's only like a page or two. Talking about quantum leaps. It was kind of interesting because what I'll share is, here, I'll actually read this. Quantum leaps, this first section, it says, to put it simply, we are going to have to reframe our ideas about the universe and how we fit into it. And I think for me, I've had to rethink that. I've had to rethink what I've always done and that I always have to be changing it if I want to get a different result to it. It also talks about quantum leap is a term taken from the vocabulary of quantum physics. The science behind such technology breaks through as lasers, computers, space communication, and nuclear energy. Quantum physics is described as the most powerful science ever conceived by human beings. It requires a major rethinking of such concepts as time and space and how human consciousness operates. And I thought that was really interesting because even for myself, at the period of time when I had a period of time when I was working temporary jobs because I was in and out of school, and I worked at a place called Photon Sources. And one of the articles I read when I was doing research for this talked about the idea of photons change based on the energy around them. And there's another study, and I think it was Joe Dispenza, who actually froze water, and water crystallized different, whether there was calm music when it was freezing or whether there was screaming when it was freezing. It was more fractured if there was screaming, or it was more uniform and pretty when it was calm. So it's kind of like that part of the unknown that we don't know about. And I thought that was an interesting thing to kind of keep in mind, that quantum physics is about what we don't know. And I'm going to tie it into a religion because I did post some articles because I wanted to know the link, because the fear has always been, are we staying underneath God's umbrella with that? And based on what I'm reading and studying and what I feel in my heart, the answer is yes, and I'll share why and the verses they talk about and the reasons behind it. But I think it's just an opportunity to learn, because as the world expands, if we expand and we look at things with an open mind and with a pure heart that wants to do good for ourselves and others, I think it will open doors for all of us. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Instead of looking for the shortcomings and then drawing the shortcomings to ourselves, we have to look for the opportunities to create a better world for ourselves and others. And I think that is a beautiful way to look at it. So the next thing it talks about is Quantum physics also has staggering implications regarding you, your potential, and the power of your mind. To put it simply, as human beings, we are going to have to reframe our ideas about the universe and how we fit into it. Fred Alan Wolf, in his award-winning book titled Taking a Quantum Leap, describes the term as the explosive jump that a particle of matter undergoes moving from one place to another. In a figurative sense, taking the quantum leap means taking a risk, going off into uncharted territory with no guide to follow. And we'll know, like as an accountant, going into the unknown was usually a no-no, so I've had to kind of look at that differently going forward. The next area it kind of talks about is physicists studying quantum mechanics note that particles make these jumps without apparent effort and without covering all the bases between the starting and ending points. And I'm like, was that directed at me? Did they write that for me? Because anyone who's listened to my lives in the past will know that I used to think I had to put together a 300-point thing and know every step I was going to take. And then I would end up stuck at the starting gate, putting all these plans together, never executing, when what I should have been doing is taking a step and only planning a couple steps down the road, because there may be a detour. There could be a volcano that goes. There could be an earthquake that takes some land down. There could be a road construction. Anything could happen. So putting together a 300-point plan meant that I was going to forever be reworking that plan. But if you take where you're at right now and you just keep moving forward, then you'll adjust as you go instead of wasting a lot of time on something that may never happen. And I just thought that was so interesting because it says, you want to take a quantum jump without an apparent effort and without covering all the bases between the starting and ending points. And that is something I've had to work really hard on in recent years, is to clear out that idea that if I didn't have an absolute perfect plan, which is not realistic, I didn't move forward. So it says, what's going on here? How does this happen? And is it possible for you as an individual to do something very similar in your performance? And I thought that this was really interesting, and so I pulled some articles like biblical Christianity and physics and spirituality, because there's a lot, like a crossover. You know, do people believe that there's a connection between spirituality, religion, Christianity, and science? And there's always kind of a back and forth. And I thought, well, and versus leave that question out there, I wanted to look it up, because a lot of my life in the past 10 years has been taking a look at what I've always done and looking at it differently and doing things differently, to stop believing that what I was once taught has to be the way it is today and going forward. It is possible to live life differently. That is possible that even if it was right years ago, it's not right anymore. Everything changes. The kind of cars, the kind of computers. I've talked before that my aunt was actually working on the very first computers in top-level security clearance, which were big mainframes. They were what they called dummy terminals. We didn't know about it till years after she had passed on, because it was top clearance. But now I think about one day in heaven, I'll talk to her about what she sees now, because we have more computing power in our phones than what she ever had in these big mainframes that she was excluded from a lot of people. I see people on. Thank you for being here. I just don't know who it is. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that if you are looking down, you would see that we have to change our approach. So what I thought was interesting is that it was talking about this idea that there were a couple Bible verses like Colossians. I always say that word wrong. Well, I'll do John 1:1-3. And it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. So, I mean, it's kind of like a circle, but its idea is the word is the original Greek logos, which means the expression of a thought. And the idea with quantum physics is it's a thought. And like I mentioned earlier, that thought can be impacted by the energy around it. Like if you're screaming at water and you freeze it, it has a fractured look to it. If you're calm music to water and you freeze it, it has a calm look to it. And we all know, like even when we're around people, if somebody's agitated, we can feel that energy. If somebody's calm, we can feel that energy. I'm better at it now than I used to be, but it is something always to work on. But I thought it was interesting that when it talked about John 1:1-3, John 1, verse 1 through 3, John, I gotta keep saying it. But in the beginning was the Word, the Word. And so its idea is the Word, which means the expression of a thought. Quantum leaps happen with thoughts. They're just that thing that you move forward. And it says, this word, this expression of God's thought created all things. And this word is a person, Jesus Christ. It is perhaps to be expected that Christ should be at the center of Christianity, but these scriptures put Christ at the center of the cosmos. And we all kind of think of that because we look to the sky. So I think that sometimes maybe we were just not open to seeing all that he's provided us. He's provided us so much more than I think we ever recognized. And as we go on, are we utilizing what we have been given? And I thought it was really interesting about like looking at, for me to take it back down to me as a person, am I looking at things differently? And the answer is yes on a couple of things. And I know I show these every single live lately, but I wrote a book and I released it at the beginning of February. It was an idea that my grandmother threw out to me, but it was something that I never took serious because I didn't really think I had anything to share. But the feedback has been really good and I'm so appreciative of it. But the other thing that came to mind is I spent 30 some years in the insurance industry and I was trying to, it was helping people, but it was big corporate America because insurance companies are big business. But what happened is when we went into that lockdown time, I ran across an opportunity to learn something different. And I'm going to tell you, I fought it. My whole intent was going to be to prove it wrong. And through the process of time and education and taking what I already knew, challenging it and seeing if there was a different approach to what I already knew. And the thing about it is it gave me some comfort because I had a base, but I had to reevaluate. It's just like driving a car. The first car I drove at 16, when you get into a new car, you have to adjust it. And I'll tell this story. I went to an event, I can't remember which one it was. And Stephen may or may not remember this, but I was complaining because I had rented a car. And when I rented, oh, you know what? It was the Utah Money Tank. And I'd rented a car. And it was so frustrating because I wasn't familiar with that car. And I didn't get enough instruction before I left the rental thing. So it started raining and I couldn't get the windshield wipers on without spraying the juice. So then the juice runs out and I'm like, it's just all learning. What I thought I knew, what worked in another car isn't going to work in this one. So why is it and some of the most important things in our life, we're not open to learning a different way? And that's where this kind of came in. Be your own banker. And for me, like I said, I fought this. I fought it hard because I didn't think somebody could teach me something new, utilizing whole life insurance policies to create a banking system or a banking process, because I had been in the industry, predominantly in property and casualty and medical malpractice, but it was my industry. And I was kind of close to it. So I think I'm kind of like the reformed smoker when it came to this. But the idea is that in the areas of my life that I changed, I had to look at what I thought I knew and do it differently in order to not be at a BMI of over 60. You know, I'm still working that journey. But the whole thing is I am half of what I was before, and I'm moving forward to getting to all the way where I need to be. But it's because I've changed my thoughts and my approach and how I live my life. And it means that if I want to change all areas of my life, I have to change all areas and be open that what I knew at some point in time may have been all I was ready to know, but am I open to learn something more? Is there something that I can dig in, know, like, and understand and make my life better? And also in doing that, make life better for other people. Because I believe if my legacy is going to be who I've helped along the way. Whether they know my name or not, it doesn't matter, but in who I've helped so that their lives can be better or their families' lives can be better. And I just think, like, when I think about all areas of my life, honestly, I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't made the changes that I made 10 years ago, because I would not have survived that first, because we went into lockdown and everybody was getting sick at a time that I always got sick. So I probably would not have survived. And that's because every year in March, I always ended up with a 90% blockage in my lungs because I was so stressed about busy season. I didn't take care of myself. Hoda, so good to see you. I have to get back in there. She's a reminder to me because I've been doing a lot of walking in the morning with my mom, but I want to get back into my gym. So Hoda's a great reminder. But I know if I hadn't made the changes I made, I wouldn't be here right now, because every busy season in March, we'd have such a workup. And this is the reason why. For anyone that doesn't understand the insurance industry, we have a really long busy season. We kind of start at the end of December, and we have to prepare regulatory financial statements due March 1st. Then we have to prepare audited statements that are June 1st. And oh, you are? That's awesome. Hoda, that's so amazing. So Hoda's at the gym right now, so I know where she's at. She's very close. But so the idea for us is our busy season would hit end of December to March, where we'd file regulatory statements. Then we would hit from shortly after March. We might have a week or two to sort of breathe, but we were working with the auditors to get our audited statements done by June 1st. So I always ended up sick in that period of time, which was March, and I would end up, and it more than once I had a 90% blockage in my lungs. Well, what happened in that time? In March, it was lungs that was taking people out. So I know that if I hadn't made the changes I did, changed the way I was eating, changed my approach to things, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So I was meant to be here, and that's a gift for me. So I have to do what I can to share. And like I said, the things that have happened, I released my book, and that was something my grandmother kind of challenged me on. I've become a licensed life agent, helping people create their own banking systems because I've done it myself. I have 3 policies myself now that I operate that way. And I've been working with teams to learn more and more about it. Oh, that's so awesome. Hoda, it would be great to see you. Hoda's my new one of my new bestest friends. She's pretty awesome. I adore her. So we will definitely look at life differently and be open. And that's what I just really loved about what's happening for me, is that I've learned that the way I've always thought, or what I've always thought I knew, it's possible to challenge it. And honestly, I think we all need to challenge it. Because even with my mom, I was talking to her, and she grew up, and I know she hates when I say this, but it was similar to a Southern Baptist, because she grew up on a farm in Southern Illinois, and that was where they all congregated. So one day she was saying something to me, and I said, well, where did you read that? She's told me, and so I kind of brought things out, and I said, okay, show me where you believe that. Well, what had happened is she had been taught something, and she didn't dig into it herself. And then she said, I don't know that I necessarily believe that. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but if you get to a place and you're comfortable with your decisions, then it's your decision. It's not somebody else. We don't want people to tell us how to live. We want to research, we want to investigate, we want to understand, and we want to learn, because we can live life better. We can do a better job, and we can be open and help other people and be around each other, because I think that we're here to make things better and to learn and to grow and to know that maybe what was being done even 15, 20, 30 years ago could be done better now. And that means being open that things that you once thought might be something to challenge to do differently. And that is kind of what I've been doing. And the first challenge was addressing the weight issue, and part of that was addressing the thoughts. And once I addressed the thoughts, I'm like, what other areas of my life can I improve with the thoughts? And that was when I left the W-2 world and started learning about this process so I could help myself and then ultimately help others. So I think that's kind of a beautiful gift for all of us. Where are we at, and what can we do? What do we think we know because we were taught it by somebody who had the best of intentions, but do we sit with it in a great, comfortable way, or do we need to research it and then get to that point where we're confident that we're headed in the right direction? And I think that's just what it needs to be, because so much of people these days is they get stuck on one thing and they're not willing to look at a different opportunity. And I will tell you that I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't have. If I hadn't have taken challenges and did things maybe I didn't want to do or didn't feel comfortable to me, I don't think I'd be alive today. But now I'm living a life that I never dreamed there was never even a dream that I was creating for myself. And I think it just has an opportunity to get better. And that's what I would want for everybody. It's to challenge what you think you know, get to a point where you're comfortable with knowing that that's like accurate, or in changing your thoughts a bit to be based on what you know, like, and understand in this current world, and then move forward. And like I've often said, and I don't know what I did with my book. I just said it a second ago. Oh, here it is. I'll just say again, for anyone who hasn't picked it up, this is my book that I released in the beginning of February. And it is, it does include my weight loss journey, but it also includes the 7 principles that I apply in all areas of my life so that I can keep moving forward. And then this is an excellent book that explains the process of creating your own banking system, which is what I became a life agent and an infinite banking practitioner. I'm a student of the infinite banking concept so that I can help other people take back control, so that instead of putting all your financial decisions in the hands of a bank, you can put them into your own family banking system. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. I've had to challenge a lot of things that I thought I knew, and I think that that's a part of growing into where we're at this time. It's a part of, if you have a new car, you've got to learn that. It's a part of, if you have to eat differently to keep your body healthy, you have to learn something new. And I think if we can be open to learning a new way, we might find some beautiful ways that we can help each other to create a better world. And wouldn't that be really nice? So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. And Hoda, it will be so amazing to see you soon. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you.